Hello, everybody, and welcome back to High School Not So Much a Musical. Sadly, this is the last part of our talk with Mr. Seth Erickson, who you know already is a professional storyteller. In this episode, we talked to Mr. Seth Erickson about his book, How to Hack Humans, where he gives us tips that we can use to market our businesses and get what we want. If you want to read the first chapter of his book, check out the link in the description. If you want to learn how to get anything you want, we'll get right into that.
This is High School Not So Much a Musical, a podcast that takes you on a ride through the peaks and valleys of a high school journey. Here are your presenters, Nitin Jaladanti and Ayush Agarwal.
Alright, so I think we're going to do something that we've never done before, and we're probably going to have a part 3 episode to this, like the Lord of the Rings trilogy. But yeah, so basically what you're saying is that the mission, and the vision, they're completely different. So the vision of a company will be what its overall goal is, right? So for example, in Nitin's thing, it's to bring affordable drone kits to teenagers so that they can start to build, code, fly drones, right? And then the mission is what specifically you're going to do to reach those goals.
Yeah.
And for example, in our business class that I took last year, the entire year, we just had to think of a company or a business and that we would create, and every month, the entire year, we were just basically creating it. So in the beginning, the first thing we had to do, what's the vision, what's the mission? And I was always stumped on it, what's the difference between a vision and a mission? So mine was the gym, and obviously my vision was to help people have a better physique and feel better. I didn't really know what my mission would be. So now I know, my mission is going to be what specific things, or they're vague, but they're still way more specific than your mission statement or than your vision. So what steps would I use or would I take to reach my objective?
Yeah. Well, with a vision, I like putting some sort of thing that you can measure it by, right? So in our case, we said 10%. We're trying to reduce this thing by 10%. Whereas if it's too vague, right, then it's hard to measure whether you're making any progress against that goal. I'm not saying it's wrong to have a vague vision, because as long as you know, they also call it a North Star. As long as you know you're going in the right direction, that's better than people who just don't have any direction. But if if it was our vision is to help 500,000 teenagers, become drone certified pilots. I don't even know if that's a thing. I'm talking out my butt here. So just take it with a grain of salt. Then you would have a number that you could work towards, So how do we get those 500,000, people certified as drone pilots or whatever? Well, we need to make a really affordable drone thing, right? We need to provide education, right, on this topic. We need to teach people how to fly their drones. We need to, maybe write a book about drone flying. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff. There's almost an infinite amount of stuff that you could do. Some of it will work, some of it won't. But like I said, at least if you have some sort of a number or something that you can kind of pin that to, then you can work backwards from it. And it's the same thing with you guys probably know OKRs, right? What is our goal? To win the Super Bowl. Okay, how are we going to win the Super Bowl? Well, we need to win more games. Okay, how are we going to win more games? Well, we need to get a really good quarterback. We need a good defensive line. We need this thing, this thing, this thing. How are we going to get those people? Well, we need this budget, or we need to trade these people, right? It all kind of flows backwards from knowing where you want to be, right? And I gave the same kind of example of the flight. Well, those could all be, the OKRs, the objectives and key results that you need to get to that place. So that's how I see it, and that's how I see it working well in companies that know where they're going. Whereas I, see other companies, honestly, I had a meeting with a city here in Texas, and they were like, here's our vision statement. And I was like, okay, hit me with it. And they said, we want to be a place where people can eat, play, and shop. I was like, what? Like that's something anybody and everybody wants, right? Like I want to go to a city and not be able to eat food, right? Like nobody's asking for that, people. like I'm like, that is the most vanilla, like non whatever vision you could ever come up with. I said, okay. I was like, just let me throw something out here for you. And they said, okay, hit us. And I said, what if you became Texas's premier foodie destination? I said, what would that look like? Well, that would mean that you would want to start bringing in more restaurants. Maybe you would want to set up a culinary school here. Maybe you want to bring in manufacturing for companies that make cooking items, right? And offer, benefits. Maybe the Chamber of Commerce wants to, to lead the charge to get those new businesses. Maybe you want to set up a food incubator. We actually have that in Dallas. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but there's a building. It's got 6 or 8 stalls that are full-size restaurants, and those restaurants, they pick people, they seed fund them, they let them run their restaurant, and if their restaurant succeeds, then they fund them, and they leave that area and they go move into a full space. I was like, we could do that here. We have the technology, people. Afterwards, like 3 or 4 different people came up to me and they were like, that was an amazing thing. I could totally see us doing it. Great. Give me a call. Let's talk about it. Never heard from him again. You know why? Because the people leading the meeting were really stuck on, we want to create a city that's, safe and fun and shopping, and I was like, yeah, you and 50 other cities in Texas and every other state, so anyway, I just to give you an example of how defining a clear vision makes it easier to again work backwards from that place and come up with something a little better of a game plan.
So I kind of wanted to shift gears a bit and talk a little bit more about your book, specifically the structure of it, because I feel like even just the structure of the book and the way you kind of like arrange the chapters and have each chapter have a song go along with it. You read the book and simultaneously listen to the songs. I think that's really cool and unique, and it kind of brings out your movie fan personality. So if you could talk a little bit about your decision-making process, how you kind of came up with the structure of the book with regards to adding the songs in there, and how you made each song capture essentially the feel of the book, or each song capture the feel of each specific chapter where it was located. I think that would be really interesting.
Yeah, so I combined 2 things that I love. One is movies, and in my head I was like, if a movie can have a soundtrack, why can't a book? It's like the dodgeball saying, if you could dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball, so I thought about it and I was like, well, how do I do that? Oh, I'll just make a playlist, and it was stupid simple. Now the next piece was like, okay, I need to find songs that kind of capture either the feel of this chapter or kind of relate to what I'm talking about in the chapter. And in my younger years, when I was 20, I was a rave DJ. So I fell in love with music, got exposed to a lot of different music, not just electronic music, but because you're looking for stuff, you want to sample things, you're listening to jazz, you're listening to hip hop, you know what I mean? There's a lot of other music that is kind of riffed on or sampled into electronic music. And so I got this wide exposure to music, and that just gave me a larger appreciation for music. So, when you listen to the soundtrack, you'll, and you guys have probably already checked it out. So it's all over the place, right? You got 80s, pop music, you got, Guns N' Roses, then you got Lupe Fiasco, then you got M83, which is, most people, well, I guess he's become more popular in the last however many years, but I was actually listening to him for like 10 years before he became popular in the US. So yeah, like I mashed all this together because of my love for music, but like in my mind, it was very simple. It was like somebody went, ooh, chocolate's good. Ooh, peanut butter's good. What happens if I just push them together? Oh yeah, that's really good, you know? And to me it was obvious, but I had never seen anybody do it. And yeah, like every person who's seen it is like, I've never seen this before, but it's a great idea. And I'm like, steal the idea. Like we need more books with soundtracks, you know? Like, I mean, audiobooks sometimes have soundtracks, but they're generally like more like a movie score, you know? And I'm like, I always like movies that had like really cool songs, like Layer Cake is a favorite of mine. And you know, the movie starts out with She Sells Sanctuary by I always get this wrong. It's The Cure or The Who. Anyway, great song, kicks off like the, you know, start of the movie, and it just like gets you excited and you're like, yeah. So again, what am I doing? I'm pulling in the emotion into the storytelling, right? I'm applying the same stuff I'm telling you guys to apply. I'm actually taking my own medicine, if you will. But yeah, the book, yeah, like I said, I structured it in 3 acts, you know, to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You know, I wanted, you know, I'm a storyteller, so I should write, you know, a lot of what I'm doing in a story format. And, you know, a lot of the ways that I do that throughout the book is I kind of tell short stories in analogies, and I analogize different ideas in as I'm trying to educate you along, so you can kind of create mental images. You know, I'm using humor again, trying to get that emotion going in you, have you have a good time while you're learning, so you're enjoying what you're reading and not just going, geez, when is this thing going to be over, you know? But you know, if you don't enjoy my brand of humor, then yeah, you may not enjoy the book. But yeah, so I'm baking in all the concepts I'm teaching in the book into the book. I'm getting all like meta, man, like you know, so yeah.
So you just said something that was meta, and that brings like this whole thing about Facebook changing its name to Meta, and it just got me to that. So do you think that this is just completely unrelated, but do you think that this Meta name is set to succeed for Facebook? Because everybody's known about the Facebook name and the story that they tell, but do you think this Meta and the fact that they're transitioning to like a virtual reality company will work out for them? Because they've had so many years of just having this website where people can actively speak with each other. They've created Facebook Marketplace and everything like that. Mm-hmm. How do you think that them changing this name will be able to tell? Because their whole thing is about, they want to change it to virtual reality, and they want to connect people together in different ways where they can see each other through screens. So how do you think that they can story tell this idea while maintaining their brand presence? Because this name has got a ton of backlash just by talking to the people at our school. So just really random question, but could you talk a little bit about how do you think Facebook can actually embrace this whole Meta thing, and how they can have people also embrace the name?
Yeah, so well, there's several things in there. One, when a brand has enough money to throw at it, like it'll probably work. Like even if people don't like it, it'll probably work, because they'll throw so much money at it that it will have to work. Like because they can do that, because they're Facebook. Whereas, you know, a startup, like we're not like, oh, let's go, you know, into the next room with our stacks of, you know, our crates of money and throw this at the marketplace until the idea works. But Facebook can do that. Like they have the resources to do that. So I think that's what they'll do. So on the VR side, though, you know, the story that they need to tell, and you kind of hit on this, is it needs to be around connectivity. Like this will help, like we're so like, yes, we can talk to each other, but we're so disconnected because we can't see each other. We can't experience each other in the same way. I can't hear the tone of the voice. And so, what we're doing is we're helping create a more connected world where you can see facial expressions, you can hear their voice, you can, instead of just reading text and then there's no tone to the text, right? And then I'm assuming you're saying it one way based on how I feel that day, when you may not be saying that. So this or that, and then people start fighting and arguing. But if they're connected more face to face, then that's great. And so, but then also you could riff on, and now that you're connected, imagine the stories you could create together, right? Because in a virtual reality world, you could start, going on adventures. It's more than just two people sitting there and talking back and forth. It could be like, we're going to go on this adventure and visit this, virtual setting or whatever. It's Ready Player One, like there's a lot that they could do there as far as what their vision is, and so they need to be clear about what that vision is. They need to be clear about the story they want to tell. And I actually only just started hearing about this like a couple of days ago, so I can't unfortunately comment on it extensively. But if I was chief storyteller at Meta, that's what I would be talking about the team with, like, how do we gear up for this and how do we tell this story and bring people along on the journey in the story,
So speaking of large companies like Facebook, I was looking into your website and it looks like Storify has done like an excellent job like expanding and working with some of these huge companies like Johnson & Johnson and Levi's. So if you are allowed to, would you mind talking about some of your past clients and some of the big name brands that you worked with, how you've been able to transform their methods of marketing and advertising and implement storytelling into their narratives?
Yeah, so I can't talk exactly about what we did for them, because quite a few of these companies are like, they treat us like the best kept secret. So I can say I worked with this company, but I can't say, and here's what we did, because part of that would be in the story. How are we telling that story? Like, you could see it from the outside, but you probably wouldn't understand how it works, right? Like, so you could copy something, but you don't know all of how it goes together, why it works, why it doesn't work. But yeah, a lot of the companies we've worked with, so I'll talk about it in general terms. We've helped change the conversation that they're having with their customers, right? Like, so many of these emails that these corporations send out are all about them, right? Me. B, because they're not about them, they're not talking about the customer. C, how they're talking to their customer is we have one big multinational customer who literally was sending emails saying, "Dear so-and-so." I'm like, who starts, like, that's like how you start a letter, saying "Dear so-and-so." Like, I was like, I asked him, I said, did the Pony Express like get into your email? Like, what the hell's going on here? Like just call them by their name or say hi so-and-so. Like why are you saying dear? Like that's how your grandmother writes, letters to you, because you won't use the email, because so that's some of the stuff that we've done. But also, we've kind of when you go through the process that we use for storytelling, and we say, you're not telling the story about you, you're telling the story about your customer. It gets your customer to go, oh, I really have to think about the customer and what they're going through and what their experience is, and actually stop and think about that and have empathy for them. Maybe fire a few mirror neurons along the way. And so, like, we'll go through the process and they'll start saying, oh, I think the customer has this problem. And I'm like, does the customer have that problem, or do you have that problem? Oh, sorry, we have that problem. Right. So what is the customer's problem? And it's like a process of like retraining their brains to think about not themselves, but the customer and their problem, and how do you communicate to them in a way that's going to make them go, I do have that problem, and it sounds like you understand me, and I like you because you understand me, and I want to buy from you because you understand me. You know what I mean? So I kind of talk about it in a generalized way, and I do that in the book as well because, like I said, I got like NDAs and all kinds of crazy stuff that like people just don't want me talking about it. But like I said, in the book, I give you all the tools. I'm like, here's a lot of the stuff that we did for these guys, but I can't tell you how we crafted the story or what we did or why that story works for them. But I can tell you how you can create your own. So I'm not banned from doing that. So.
All right, so we're running short on time, and we're gonna ask like the final question now, and
Okay.
It's the staple of our podcast. And the last question we ask the person we bring on is always like a tips question. So this can be very big, or it can be centered about storytelling. But basically, if you could give any tips to high schoolers listening to this podcast, like what would it be? And it can be general, or it can be centered around what you do.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm a storyteller, right? And so it's like, well, of course, the storyteller is going to say, you should learn about storytelling, right? Because when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? Like, but it's true, and the reason I say that is because, like, and I said this before, and I've already given lots of tips, but at the end of the day, you have to deal with humans, and the way that humans, interact with one another is we communicate. So we make sounds with our mouth holes that go into other people's ears, or we write words down that they pick up with their eyes. That is all communication, and the most effective way to communicate is to give people information in a story. And so if you can learn that now, then you'll be a better communicator. You'll be a better speaker. You'll be a better pitcher, for pitching, your ideas. You'll be better at communicating thoughts and ideas in your relationships, whether it's family members or, a significant other. Like, all of that is just going to make you better as a human being, and it's going to make you better communicate with other humans. So that's my tip, even though it sounds like, well, yeah, of course you would say that, but it's true. And frankly, there's lots of science to back it up. So it's not just my opinion.
Yeah, so this was a great episode. It was completely different from anything we've done before. I think that it taught all three of us something that we can definitely apply in the future whenever we're speaking to somebody and we really want to convince them of something. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And if you want to download chapter 1 of How to Hack Human, Mr. Erickson's book, you can go to storifyagency.com/high school or press the link in the description of this podcast. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much, Mr. Erickson, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, everybody. That's our show for today. Now roll the credits. High School Not So Much a Musical is hosted by Ayush Agarwal, Nitin Jaladanki, and Rishi Sinha. Narration by Samhit Padala. Music from Louis Luang Relaxation Cafe, Tune Pocket, and Infraction. If you like the show, please recommend it to your friends and family. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.